Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shiyuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijan Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, thank you all for coming. So today we will revise Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Unit 17. Unit 17 covers chapters 13 to 19. Today we'll be revising chapters 13 to 16. Now the first chapter that we have, Unit 13, there are no presenters for chapter 13. Is anybody wanting to do spontaneous presentation for chapter 13? All right, I will do chapter 13 presentation. So unit 17 is titled Prithu Maharaj, part 1. Unit 17 covers Canto 4, chapters 13 to 19. And this Prithu Maharaj's discussion continues into next unit number 18 in chapters 20 to 23. The crux of the discussion in this chapter 13 is in verse 37 that sometimes Lord arranges an unfortunate wife like Sunita for Anga, or a cruel son like Vena for his devotee like Anga, so that the devotee gradually detaches from wife and home so as to progress in devotional life. Plus, the another important point in this chapter is that people without a son are actually fortunate, and that a bad son is better than a good son. In Canto 4, the previous chapter 12, in verses 41 to 43, Vidura hearing that Srila Narad Muni glorified Dhruv Maharaj at the sacrifice of Prachetas. Therefore, at the start of chapter 13, Vidura inquires about Prachetas. From Dhruv Maharaj all the way to Prachetas, Maitreya Muni describes many personalities in between as well. Maitreya Muni describes most or many descendants of Dhruv Maharaj. Now, Dhruv Maharaj's elder son, Utkala, did not accept the throne because to the less intelligent people, Utkala appeared as foolish. Actually, Utkala was not foolish. Hence, the analogy is given that how fire is covered with ashes. And therefore, Dhruv Maharaj's next son, Utsara, was made the king. Vatsara. Vatsara, the younger son of Dhruv Maharaj, was made the king. So Vatsara's seventh son Anga was a saintly king, while Anga's son Vena was of a bad character. Hence, Anga is disgusted with Vena. And Vidura is astonished that how can a good king have a bad son, as well as Vidura also inquires, why did the sages conversant with Dharma curse and kill King Vena? The events leading to Vena's birth is that even though Anga performed Ashwamekh Yajna properly, still the demigods did not come to the Yajna. And Anga inquired whether he has done any offenses. The priests inform Anga that Anga has done nothing wrong in this life, but due to sin of his previous life, therefore the demigods did not come to the Yajna. And the priest suggests to please the Lord and ask for a son. So the crux of the discussion in this chapter 13 in verse 37 is that sometimes Lord arranges an unfortunate wife like Sunita or a cruel son like Vena for his devotee like Anga so that the devotee gradually detaches from wife and home to progress in devotional life. And there is a difference in how Lord fulfills respective desires of karmis and the devotees. The Lord fulfills the desires of karmis as they desire, but the Lord fulfills the desire of a devotee in a different way so that the devotee may gradually come to him. And this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10.10. Tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. That the Lord gives the devotee the opportunity to make progress further and further so that he can come back home, back to Godhead. In order to increase his detachment from material world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead willed that a cruel son be born to the queen so that Anga would have to leave home. Anga's wife Sunita was daughter of Mrityu, death personified, hence she gave birth to a cruel son, Vena. And this was Vidura's inquiry that how a child, even though born to a good father, may become sinful. And the answer is that the child's mother, Sunita, was daughter of death personified. And generally, the daughter receives the qualifications of her father, and the son acquires those of the mother. So, according to this axiomatic truth, the child born of King Anga became the follower of principles of his maternal grandfather. The maternal family is very corrupt or sinful. The child, even though born of a good father, becomes a victim of maternal family. So because of the bad son, Anga leaves home because Vena is doing a lot of atrocities. And this is the second crux of the discussion in this chapter, that people without a son are actually fortunate, and that a bad son is better than a good son. The analogy of a blind eye is given to describe a bad son, that a son born without good qualities is as good as a blind eye. The blind eye has no use for seeing, but it is simply unbearable, painful. This is a quick summary of chapter 13. Any questions, comments, realizations? All right, same as chapter 13, no presenters. So chapter 14 also, the first part, we don't have any presenters. Anybody willing to do spontaneous presentation for the first part of chapter 14? All right, I will play Abhishek Prabhu's recording for the second part of chapter 14. Abhishek Prabhu anyway briefly touches base on the initial part also, and then I will talk for the whole chapter, chapter 14.
Hare Krishna everyone. Seeking permission from all devotees, Srila Prabhupada and Shri Hare Krishna, to be able to present on this section of Srimad Bhagavatam. We see that because of the sinful life King Vena had led, the sages tried to personally counsel him, but because of his sinful life, the king had lost all intelligence and could not take to the good instructions of the sages. The king insulted the sages and also he insulted the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. Not tolerating the insult of King Vena for the Supreme Lord Vishnu, the sages, with the power of their mantra, kill the king. They give a perfect example that we should not tolerate the blasphemy of devotees or of the Lord. If a devotee are blasphemed or the Lord is blasphemed and we stay silent, it would be a great mistake on our part. Later on, the sages uh, see that because of the king's death, there has been many disturbances in the society. The society was disturbed by rogues and thieves who had gone into hiding earlier due to Vena's fear, but now they are plundering the citizens. Being kingless, the law and order was not proper. Even though the sages could have killed the thieves by their mantra, they thought it improper on their part to take the role of Kshatriyas. They had killed Vena only out of an emergency. But being compassionate on the people, they could not stay impartial to the sufferings. Such neglect on their part to relieve the distress of the conditioned society would have diminished their spiritual power. Example of Prahlad Maharaj is stated that Prahlad Maharaj did not want liberation alone. He wanted to liberate the whole world. But still many sages want to go to Himalayas for their personal benefit. Sages also wanted to continue the seminal line of the saintly king Dhruva, of which Maharaj Anga and his son Vena were also born. Anga was a very pious king, and this family line of Dhruva Maharaj has all the qualities to become great devotees. So the sages wanted it to continue. So Anga, by the association of his wife Sunita, became the seminal line became polluted and King Vena was born. So it is explained that such disciplic line of pious kings should continue. So to continue this line, the sages churned the thigh of Vena so that all his sinful reactions as a result of his past sins could be relieved, and because of this churning, a personality named Bahuka was born. Bahuka took charge and of all the sinful reactions of King Vena, so that later on, the next offspring would be a pious king. Thank you for giving this opportunity to pray. Hare Krishna.
Okay, because we discussed partially, so let me first discuss chapter 14 as well, and then we'll pause for questions, comments, realizations. So chapter 14 is titled The Story of King Vena. After Anga left the kingdom, thieves and rogues were flourishing without a king. Therefore, reluctantly, the sages had made the unqualified Vena as king, although not everyone agreed for Vena to become king. So in modern democracy, the Varnashram system's divisions based on guna and karma are turned topsy-turvy, and by vote, Shudras are chosen for administrative post. Having no knowledge for ultimate goal of life, such persons whimsically enact laws without knowledge of life's purpose. And the result is no one is happy. Srila Prabhupada explains, when a government is very weak, rogues and thieves flourish. When a government is strong, all thieves and rogues disappear or hide themselves. So Vena was not a very good king, but he was known to be cruel. Thus, the state at least became freed from thieves and rogues. And next, the Vena's pride and arrogance and inappropriate attitude is described. Vena prohibited religious activities. When Vena became the king, he became all powerful. Consequently, he became very proud. And by virtue of his false prestige, he considered himself to be greater than anyone. Because he was not very considerate person, he began to insult great personalities. And the concerned sages, they planned to meet Vena to pacify him. Or if Vena does not listen, then the sages would decided that they will go on to kill Vena if it is required. Now, the sages are generally not interested in political matters. Yet simultaneously, the sages are concerned about the welfare of people. Hence, the sages went to the extreme situation of killing Vena as an exception. The duty of a saintly person is that saintly persons are not interested in political matters, yet they are always thinking for the welfare of people in general. Consequently, they sometimes have to come down to political field and take steps to correct the misguided government. In Kali Yuga, saintly persons are not as powerful as they previously were. Hence, Brahmanas do not even have the power to perform sacrifices in which animals are put into fire to attain a new life. So, under these circumstances, instead of actively taking part in politics, the saintly person should engage in chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Now, it is not the duty of Brahmanas and saintly persons to kill, although they sometimes do so in case of an emergency, just as the sages killed King Vena out of emergency. The sages could also kill all the uprising of the thieves and rogues by prowess of their mantras. But they thought it is duty of a Kshatriya king to do so. Hence, they reluctantly did not take part in the killing business. The sages try to pacify Vena by stating what the duties of government are. Now, all the duties that I am about to describe, none of these duties are being carried out by the government in modern times. The government's duty is to protect citizens, else government cannot levy taxes. Duty is to immediately kill dishonest ministers in government service. Duty is that king should be pious and ensure people follow Varnashram Dharma. Duty is to satisfy Supreme Personality of Godhead by activities. If Supreme Personality of Godhead is satisfied, then all necessities of life are automatically supplied. Based on what is going on in the world right now, you can very easily visualize that definitely Supreme Personality of Godhead is not satisfied. Therefore, there are so many warfare and all the disasters. Vena's arrogant reply to the sages is Vena is fully arrogant and puffed up. Vena responds to the sages saying that the sages are inexperienced and that the king is supreme lord. Therefore, the sages should worship Vena, the king. Because of blasphemy of the Lord, the sages kill Vena, and Vena's mother Sunita preserves Vena's dead body using special ingredients and with mantras. The saintly persons are generally kind to everyone, but if government becomes demoniac, it is their duty to replace the government with deserving persons. Hence, the sages went on to the extreme to kill Vena, not by weapons, but by their mantras. So what is the duty of saintly people who see God and or his devotees being insulted? So at any time, one should not tolerate blasphemy and insults against Lord Vishnu and or his devotees. Devotee is very humble and meek and is reluctant to pick a quarrel with anyone, nor does he envy anyone. However, a pure devotee immediately becomes angry when he sees the Lord Vishnu and or his devotees are insulted. This is the duty of devotee, saintly people. Although the devotee maintains an attitude of gentleness, it is great fault on his part if he remains silent when the Lord and or his devotees are blaspheming. The sages again observed that the thieves and rogues started flourishing again, just as after Anga, the same situation happened again after Vena's death. The sages could also kill all the uprising thieves and rogues by their mantras, but they thought it is duty of Kshatriya kings to do so. Hence, the sages did not engage in killing the thieves. So Vena's body had a pure portion of Anga and the impure portion of Sunita. Sunita being the daughter of death personified. Hence, using special process, the sages churn the thighs of the dead body of Vena to separate the impure portion in Vena's body coming from Sunita. Hence, the form of degraded Bahuka was produced. And now, Vena's dead body has only the good portion of Anga. And in the next chapter 15, the sages will churn Vena's arms for Prithu Maharaj and Archie to appear. Prithu Maharaj is partial representation of Lord and Archie is partial representation of Lord's eternal consort, Lakshmi Devi. That's a quick summary of chapter 14. Any questions, comments, realizations?
Prabhuji, could you please repeat the last conclusion? That is, impure portion is Sunita and pure portion Anga of the dead body of Vena. And further conclusion, you said something about the Lakshmi Devi.
Yeah.
Could you please?
I'll repeat the last portion. That Vena's body had pure portion of Anga and the impure portion of Sunita, because Sunita is daughter of Mrityu, death personified. Therefore, using special process, the sages churn the thighs of the dead body of Vena to separate the impure portion in Vena's body coming from Sunita. Hence, the form of degraded Bahuka was produced. And now in Vena's dead body, only the good portion of Anga remains. And in next chapter 15, the sages will churn Vena's arms for Prithu Maharaj and Archie to appear. Prithu Maharaj is partial representation of Lord, and Archie is partial representation of Lord's eternal consort, Lakshmi Devi. Chandan,
Thank you,
Prabhu.
Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
All right. So Mother Jija is presenting chapter 15. Mother Jija, go ahead. Mother Jija also has some slides, so I'll play the slides for her.
Hare Krishna. I offer my obeisances to our Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ji. I seek blessings from all devotees. Kindly forgive me for any mistakes and shortcomings in this presentation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 4, Chapter 15, Text 1 to 26. King Prithu's appearance and coronation. The Vedas and the Puranas have always exemplified the role of a mother. The dead body of King Vena was preserved by drugs and mantras chanted by his mother. One should not think it was impossible for another body to come out of the dead body of King Vena. This was performed by the skillful action of the sages. The Brahmanas and sages churned the two arms of King Vena's dead body. As a result, a male and female came out of his arms. The sages knew that this was an expansion of the plenary portion of Sri Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The male who came out of King Vena's arm became King Pruthu, who was the Satyavesha avatara of the Lord, and the female Queen Archi was the Satyavesha avatara of the goddess of fortune. One cannot call oneself as the Lord. Brahmaji examined King Pruthu's hand and feet for specific signs. Seeing the lines of Lord Vishnu's palm on King Pruthu's right hand and impression on the soles of his feet, Brahmaji knew King Pruthu was a partial representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The learned sages arranged for the King Pruthu's coronation. Everyone collected presents according to their ability. Lord Brahma, Saraswati, Vishnu, Varuna, Vayu, Dharma, Indira, Yamaraja, Upendra, Shiva, Durga, Moon God, Vishwakarma, Agni, Sun God, the seas, the rivers, and all the citizens gave valuable gifts to the King Pruthu. King Pruthu was also given mystic powers and spiritual knowledge. The offerings of prayers was an appropriate for King Pruthu was the incarnation of the Lord. Everyone praise King Pruto when he was seated on the throne with Queen Archie for the coronation. King Pruto humbly said that he did not want anyone to praise or glorify him, as the real godly qualities were not yet manifest in him. Amidst all pomp and grandeur, the king and queen were blessed by all. Thus, King Pruto, a humble Maharaja, came to protect this world. At the present moment, in Kali Yuga, there are many persons who declare that they are God. One must not offer praises or prayers to an unfit person who pretends to be God. Thank you, devotees. Jai Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Any questions, comments, realizations for Mother Jija?
As always, the slides are so excellent. Catches the crux of all the matter. Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, very good. Yes. Correct. Mother Jija has given the crux on the slides. I will quickly summarize chapter 15 as well. So both chapters 15 and 16 are short and straightforward chapters. Chapter 15 is titled King Pruthu's Appearance and Coronation. So King Pruthu appeared, and what type of expansion is King Pruthu? King Pruthu is an expansion of the plenary portion of Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not at the Vishnu Tattva level, but a specifically empowered expansion of Lord Vishnu known as Shakti Avesha Avatar. King Prithu is an incarnation of the ruling force of the Lord. Personalities with extraordinary power are a specific partial representation of the Lord. Such incarnations, empowered for specific purposes, are known as Shakti Avesha Avatars. King Prithu is a Shakti Avesha avatar of the Lord. Similarly, Archi, King Prithu's wife, is Shakti Avesha avatar of goddess of fortune. Upon appearance of Prithu Maharaj, the people became jubilant, and Brahmaji explains that before accepting someone as an incarnation of God, one should verify his identity according to the symptoms mentioned in scriptures, such as the marks on the lotus feet of the Lord were identical on the lotus feet of Prithu Maharaj. Prabhupada also explains how should the goddess of fortune be worshipped. People in the material world are very fond of goddess of fortune, and they want her favor in form of riches. These materialistic people should know that goddess of fortune is inseparable from Lord Vishnu. Materialistic people should understand that the goddess of fortune should be worshipped along with Lord Vishnu and should not be regarded separately. Materialistic people seeking the favor of goddess of fortune must worship Lord Vishnu and Lakshmi together to maintain their material opulences. If materialistic people follow the policy of Ravan, who tried to separate Mother Sita from Lord Ramchandra, the process of separation will vanquish him, exactly how Ravan got vanquished. Those who are very rich and have taken favor of goddess of fortune in this world must engage their money in service of the Lord. In this way, they can continue in their opulent position without disturbance. Then the sages assemble paraphernalia for the coronation of Prithu Maharaj, and various personalities offer various gifts to Prithu Maharaj. As the bards and other devotees were praising Prithu Maharaj stops them from praising him because Prithu Maharaj says, I have not yet displayed the qualities of Supreme Personality of Godhead that you are all praising. And these qualities of Supreme Lord, I will display them later. Hence, you should praise later. And Prithu Maharaj says, I do not want your words to go in vain. Right now, you all should offer praise directly to Supreme Lord and not to a low human like me. Because praise is insult to allow followers to praise now for future qualities. Prithu Maharaj says, right now I am just an ordinary human. Now this is of course display of humility by Prithu Maharaj. So what is Prithu Maharaj teaching us in Prithu Maharaj's unwillingness to accept praise? So the offering of prayers and the praise was certainly appropriate because Prithu Maharaj is an incarnation of Godhead. But he warned that one should not be accepted as an incarnation of God without having the godly qualities. Although there was no fault in the prayers offered to Prithu Maharaj indicated that such prayers should not be offered to unfit person who pretends to be incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Prithu Maharaj wanted to stress that one who does not actually possess these qualities should not try to engage his followers and devotees in offering him glory for them, even though these qualities might manifest in future. If a man who does not factually possess the attributes of great personality engages his followers in praising him, that sort of praise is actually an insult, is cheating. So a person who's a foolish person who agrees to accept such praise does not know that such words are simply insult to him. That's a quick summary of chapter 15. Any questions, comments, realizations? All right, Shivangi is next for chapter 16.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, seeking permission and blessings from all of you, Srila Prabhupada, Sri Guru Parampara, as well as Sri Radha Krishna, to offer this summary of Canto 4, Chapter 16, titled Praise of King Prithu by the Professional Reciters. Please forgive me for my shortcomings and mistakes. At the start of the chapter, Maitreya Muni narrates how the bards continued to glorify King Prithu with exalted prayers. Although the king denied such praise because he was not at the time exhibiting his godly qualities, the bards did not stop praising him. Rather, they were very pleased with the king, who, although actually an incarnation of God, was so humble and delightful in his dealings with devotees. The key lesson here is that no matter how expert one may be, he can never describe the glories of the Lord adequately. Although we are unable to offer prayers to the Lord in an adequate fashion, our duty is to attempt in order to purify ourselves. The rest of the chapter speaks to the exemplary characteristics of King Prithu. For example, he is described as being best among those who are following religious principles, engaging everyone in the pursuit of religious principles and exemplifying the duty of the head of government, which is to nicely guide all subjects towards religious and spiritual life. King Prithu alone would induce all citizens to engage in all necessary sacrificial activities so that there would be no scarcity or distress for the populace. There are also various glorifications through analogies with the bards, which the bards use in their glorification. First, he is compared to the sun god, As an ideal king, King Prithu would distribute his mercy equally, execute all business of the state as expertly, just as the sun god equally distributes his sunshine to everyone. Just as no one can check the sunshine from spreading all over the universe, no one could check the influence and reign of King Prithu, which would remain undisturbed as long as he lived. Just as the sunshine and sun god cannot be separated, nor could King Prithu and his ruling strength be separated. Then he is compared to the earth goddess. As the earth is tolerant upon all living entities, King Prithu would be very, very kind to all citizens out of his causeless mercy. When compared to the rain god, it is said that if there would be a scarcity of rain, King Prithu would manage to counteract the deficiency by virtue of his godly powers. He would level the surface of the earth with his bow, breaking all the hills exactly as King Indra, the heavenly king, breaks mountains with his powerful thunderbolt. As Varuna Deva, the comparison to Varuna Deva, just as no one could understand what is going on beneath the sea, thanks to the workings of Lord Varuna, no one can understand what policies King Prithu would follow to make everything successful. When compared to the air god, it is said that just as the air and the life force within the body are exhibited internally and externally, though always neutral to all affairs, King Prithu will be able to observe the activities of all his citizens, though he himself will be neutral regarding all matters. He is also compared to a lion. When the lion travels in the forest with its tail turned upward, all other animals hide themselves. Similarly, when King Prithu will travel over his kingdom and vibrate the string of his bow, all demoniac persons and thieves will hide themselves in all directions. The king will consider all embodied living entities as dear as his own self, and he will always be increasing the pleasure of his citizens. He will intimately associate with liberated persons, and he will be a chastising hand to all impious persons. In essence, the reciters of these prayers are describing the transcendental qualities of King Prithu, and these qualities are summarized in the words Sakshat Bhagavan, meaning that King Prithu is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore possesses unlimited good qualities. This concludes the summary. Thank you all for listening. Hare Krishna.
Questions, comments, realizations for Shivangi? All right. Shivangi has already done a very good job. I will briefly summarize. I won't go into so much detail as Shivangi, although Shivangi is right in doing the presentation the way she has done. So chapter 16 is also short and straightforward. Chapter 16 is titled Praise of King Prithu by professional reciters. So even after gentle chastisement by Prithu Maharaj, that Prithu Maharaj asked the bards to stop praising him, the bards continued to praise Prithu Maharaj because from the instructions of the sages, the bards recognized that Prithu Maharaj is an expansion of Supreme Lord, and the bards were pleased by the humility of Prithu Maharaj. The bards and the other devotees said that we have to understand the incarnation of God by the instructions of authorized persons. We cannot manufacture God by our own concoctions. Ordinary people have to follow the instructions of Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru. These statements made in Shastra and those made by bona fide Sadhu or Guru cannot differ from one another. Spiritual master is one who follows the instructions and follows the instructions of the predecessors as well, namely the sadhus or saintly persons. The bona fide spiritual master does not mention anything not mentioned in the authorized scriptures. The bards say that it is not possible for us to glorify you to the fullest because you are an incarnation of God. We have discussed this point in Bhagavad Gita chapter 11. That the words that we use to glorify the Lord, these words are inadequate to glorify the glories of the Lord. But that does not mean we should not glorify. We should still glorify the Lord and simultaneously recognize that we may not be able to glorify the Lord to the fullest. Just as a young bird can fly little bit according to its ability, and a fully grown up bird will be able to fly little more according to the ability. Similarly, according to whatever ability we have, we should try to glorify the Lord with the understanding that our glorification will not go to the fullest extent because I don't have that much ability. But still, for His pleasure, as well as for our purification, and for communicating something to the world about the glories of the Lord, we should still try to speak the glories of the Lord. The word Atma Maya in relation to Lord's appearance is described. The word Maya means by your causeless mercy. Mayavadis explain the word Maya as meaning illusion or false. And as stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord appears through His internal potencies, Atma Maya. We should therefore reject the Mayavad explanation that the Lord appears in a body given by external potency, the material energy. No, it is incorrect. The Lord and His incarnations are fully independent and can appear anywhere and everywhere by virtue of internal potency. Just as here, although born out of so-called dead body of Vena, King Prithu is still an incarnation of Supreme Lord by Lord's internal potency. The Lord can appear in any family. Sometimes He appears as fish incarnation, the Matsya avatar, or sometimes as boar incarnation, the Varaha avatar. Meaning the Lord is completely free and independent to appear anywhere and everywhere by His internal potency. And the last part of the chapter, King Prithu manifests the qualities of demigods and acted like different demigods, which Shivangi summarized very nicely. I won't go into detail. As well as the various qualities of Prithu Maharaj are also described. And prediction of future activities of Prithu Maharaj is also described that Prithu Maharaj will travel, he will milk earth, he will terrify the thieves, he will do sacrifices and meet the Kumaras. Prithu Maharaj's fame will be widespread and will be glorified by all. That's a quick summary of chapter 16. Any questions, comments, realizations?
Prabhuji, the comparison analogy of the lion and the king talks everything about Prithu Maharaj, Prabhuji. Describes everything about Prithu Maharaj.
Yeah, very good. Very good hearing
What
with
she
that.
explained.
Yeah, very good hearing with rapt attention. All right. We have just about 10 minutes. Any questions, comments, realizations you want to use the time for? So next week, we will continue the revision of this unit. We'll revise chapters 17, 18, and 19. We do have presenters for all the chapters. Now, today we did not have presenters for these initial chapters. Now, all of you should be preparing all the chapters and be prepared to speak on spiritual subject matter at moment's notice. Prabhupada said this, that we should be able to talk about spiritual subject matters at short notice. So I have explained multiple times that don't just prepare for what you are supposed to present. This is revision, and you all should prepare all chapters so that you are revising. And if somebody does not show up or there are no presenters, then any one of you should spontaneously do the presentations. That's my request. It's for your consideration. All right. We will stop here so that it doesn't become late for devotees in India.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.